All right, so hi, y'all, it's Tiffany. Um, I'm finally ready to tell my story. I know everybody wants to know exactly why I was in the hospital for 5 days, why I had to have 2 surgeries in those 5 days. um, that particularly I waited because of vanity. I wanted to get my nails done first because I tend to talk with my hands, and my nails were trashed the last few days. So I got a new set. Okay, that's out the way. I do think this is going to be my nail choice for when I go to California in August. But, whatever. So, everything started last Friday. Now, before this happened, I had gone to dialysis Wednesday, treated fine. The only issue that I had at dialysis Wednesday is the same thing I've been having the last few weeks. My blood pressure dropping at the end of treatment. And, I'm going to go complain about my doctor in that respect come Monday. But that was the only concern in my mind when I walked into dialysis last Friday was, I hope I don't bottom out again. So I go, leading up to this, it was standard procedure. Nothing out of the ordinary. Went to McDonald's, got me something to eat, went to dialysis, sat in the lobby and ate it, watched the soap opera on the TV, chatted with some of the ladies while they was waiting for their husbands who were patients to come out. Nothing to indicate this situation that was brewing on the horizon. Nurse calls me back. Come on, Tiffany, we're ready for you. So I go back there. I see one of the nurses I trust to stick my arm. I say, hey, can you stick my arm real quick? She said, sure, because she was in a different, pod from what I was in, so I wasn't technically her patient. But, she came to stick me. So she sat down. We're talking. I don't even remember what we were talking about. We were having a normal conversation. Like I said, everything is as it has been a 1,000 times before. I spray the numbing stuff on my arm. She swabs it with the alcohol. She uncaps the needle, puts the needle in my arm. So we're talking, and I notice her face changes because, she's looking down as she's putting the needle in my arm. And she's looking at it weird, and I'm like, well, what's wrong, Jenny? So from where I was sitting, it looked like the blood didn't flash in the tube. Like she had put it into my arm, and the blood didn't come into the needle, which I do have a spot on my arm that I call a dead spot, which no matter how you try to stick it, you can't get blood out of it for some reason. You'll just have an empty needle. That's what it looked like to me. And then she was like, you don't see it? And I was like, see what? So there's a way you can twist it to make, the blood or whatever advance in it. So a liquid advanced, and it was not blood. It was white. So I looked at it and I said, is that pus coming out of my arm? Now, you know how in Thriller, when Ola Ray turns around, she sees Michael Jackson as the zombie for the first time, and the camera does that in and out shot? That's what it felt like in real life for me. I'm looking at my arm and it's doing the in and out shot. And this isn't a music video. This isn't a Hollywood production. This is real life. So I'm like, that freaked me the fuck out right away. That just freaked me out completely right away. Pardon my language. I have to keep remembering I intend to post this where 3T can see it, and I don't want them to hear me dropping F-bombs everywhere. Just throwing them out like sprinkles. But, that really put the fear of God into me right there. So I said, what do we do? She said she didn't know because she had never seen this before. So I suddenly turned into Sideshow at the circus because apparently no other nurse on the floor had ever stuck a patient and have pus come out. They said, if there was something wrong with somebody's arm, it would be visible on top of the skin. You would have an open bleeding wound. You would have, a weeping wound. You would have something, that says, hey, everything's not kosher here. Everything is kind of bad here. My arm looked like my arm. It's a little beat up, but it didn't look like it had that up under the skin. So all the nurses are having a powwow right in front of my seat. Damn the rest of the patients. Apparently, none of the patients mattered while everybody was having this science experiment looking at my arm. So finally somebody said, well, Tiffany, what do you want to do? I said, well, we obviously can't treat if it's got a potential infection there. Now here comes this jackass. I'll leave him nameless to save the innocent. But first of all, this guy come talking out his mouth. This is the one where a few videos back, I said, there was a nurse and he was skipping around the room like, I don't know, like he's a Mary Poppins or something. So he comes over there and he says, do you want him to try to stick it again? Have you lost your goddamn mind, sir? You got 5 nurses standing here like this. Pus is a sign of infection. There's some sort of an infection going on at the moment with Tiffany. You really want somebody in this building to take a needle, jam that in there, and introduce that to my bloodstream? And the thing is, I have had blood poisoning before. It is not fun. It is not pretty. You know how they have those people who say, like when they're about to have a massive heart attack or something, they get that impending sense of doom? That's what I had when I had the blood poisoning. That impending sense of doom. It's laying in my bed, and I made my boyfriend rush me to the hospital. Because I knew if I didn't move, every fiber of my being at that time was telling me, Tiffany, you're going to die. Not maybe, you will die. And I almost did. So I didn't want to go through this again. Not a second time. So, I said, F that. I'm going to the hospital. So there's ambulances coming and going. This is a medical facility. They're bringing people who can't walk, people on stretchers, people in wheelchairs, all day long, nonstop. I say, get me an ambulance. Why does jackass, same one, look at me, and he says, oh, well, you can go, walk into dialysis clinic. Walk into the emergency room or anything. There is an active infection. Somebody just punctured it. And you want me to go walk into the emergency room, go through triage, and sit and wait to be called? Where if anything happens, I'm the low man on the totem pole? Because unless I'm on fire, nobody is going to rush me and fast track me. Get an ambulance. He didn't want to get an ambulance. I told this man 4 separate times, get an ambulance. The last time he wanted to say, well, you'll have to pay for it. At what point does it look like I give a damn about how much an ambulance costs? I'm trying to save my damn life here before things get out of hand. Because they're already starting to spiral right now with this hole in my arm with stuff leaking out of it. I said, you call me an ambulance right now, or I'm calling 911. He didn't want to call an ambulance because if you call an ambulance to the clinic, that's an incident report, and you have to do paperwork. Like I give a fuck about paperwork, pardon my language. Not when my life is involved. He called an ambulance because I was about to get up out that chair and hurt him. I was really about to do some damage to him. He went and called an ambulance. The ambulance came and got me. So, we explained to them what had happened. And they asked me what hospital I want to go to. I told them what hospital I wanted to go to. We leave. Get to the emergency room. I think I was in the emergency room for less than 30 minutes before they brought me back. Now, just imagine if I had walked in there and said, hey, my arm is leaking. I would probably still be in the emergency room waiting to be seen by a physician right now. And it's the following Saturday. It's been a week. So, these people come get me. And of course, they start drawing blood. So, my initial thought is, damn, I have an infection in my arm. That's going to automatically be surgery. I don't know if they're going to need to put a chest tube in. depending on how bad the infection is, how they gotta go about treating it, how many antibiotics they gotta run through me. So, of course they slapped the IV in me, started running the strongest antibiotic in the damn hospital through my line. So, okay, I'm getting that. I like keep in mind, in the meantime, they're running my blood cultures. And I'm on my phone. I have no charger. After Friday night, my phone was dead. I didn't get to charge my phone until the following Wednesday when I went home. So, I'm texting everybody, trying to get everybody to know. I'm texting my boyfriend. I'm texting my friends. I'm telling them, I'm in a hospital. Something's going on. Something's not right. So, finally, I was in there so long they had to bring me like a little sandwich because I hadn't eaten anything for dinner. And it was like 10 o'clock at night. So, doctor finally come back around and they're explaining, okay, we have to admit you. You're not going home tonight. We have to admit you. We're waiting on a room for you. We're going to put you in a room. And they're telling me, oh, well, we did your blood cultures and everything. The talk of the infection stopped at this point. And it shifts to a totally different issue that I was unaware of. Were you aware that the potassium in your blood was really, really high? No, I was not. No, I'm not supposed to eat stuff high in potassium. So that means I can't have like bananas. I can't have raw tomatoes. I can't have, basically anything. I can't have avocados. I can't really have guacamole or anything like that, even though I love guacamole. The potassium will build up and cause me to have a heart attack. So I said, well, what's my level at? He said 7.7, which don't sound like a lot. I said, well, what's the good range? He said between 3.5 and 5.5. So I was like effing double what it was supposed to be. And I've only ever had that problem once before. I have been really good over the years about my potassium. If, in 17 years, I've only ever had two times where it's been a problem. And honestly, the last time it was a problem, my father was still alive. So it was well over 10 years ago. And I said, so the first thing to come out of my mouth, I remember the treatment for that. There's this disgusting concoction called K-Exalate. And it looks like chocolate milk, but it don't taste a damn thing like it. And it tears your stomach up because the only way to remove the potassium with that is to eliminate it. That's the most polite way I can put it. And I did not want to go through that again. So somebody said K-Exalate. So I was just like, oh my God, is there any other option? That was the only option 10, 12 years ago. Oh yeah, we got something else. It's called Lokelma. It's a tasteless little white powder. And they kept putting it into apple juice for me. It would turn the apple juice kind of a milky color, but it didn't affect the flavor at all. If you didn't look at it, you're just drinking apple juice. And I drank so much of that stuff over those 5 days. And they're like, yeah, we have to admit you. You have to have, we desperately need to get you into dialysis. So, the same evening. Was it the same evening? No, it wasn't. Stayed Friday night, Saturday morning, bright and early. As soon as I got done eating breakfast, which was terrible, because for some reason the renal diet means no salt. But I had salt in my backpack because I have salt to eat to try to keep my blood pressure up. So I was covertly seasoning everything with salt. The dialysis team come in because they put me on the dialysis floor. Like literally right around the corner, there's a dialysis unit in hospital. So they come and they said, well, we're going to try to stick your arm. And, if we have trouble with that, we have a surgeon on call. His name was Dr. Morrison, I believe. Okay, so they wind me around there. Now, I knew 2 of the nurses in there. They used to work at my clinic. They left my clinic and came to the hospital and worked in the dialysis clinic there. So the one girl, she come over there, Itzy, she comes to try to stick my arm. Now, I was petrified that this woman was going to stick my arm and, more pus was just going to come shooting out of my arm. So it was the bottom one that was giving me the trouble, that the stuff come out of. So she stuck this one and it was fine. It was just, blood ran through the line. It was fine. The problem was up here, and I knew it was going to be a problem anyway to start, because that's a tricky stick, and maybe 3 nurses at my clinic can stick this right. You can't just walk in and stick this and go about your business. You basically have to molest my arm to try to figure out which way the vein goes and how to stick the needle into it and all that. So, bless her heart, Itzy tried twice. Missed it both times. No blood even showed up anywhere to the chat. There was no blood visible at all. I said I don't want to get stuck a third time, because that's a very large needle. I have posted a picture of the needle on my Instagram. You can see it is by comparison with somebody holding it with their finger. So you can see just how large it is. It's a 15 gauge needle. And I'm supposed to get 2 of them if I'm lucky. I got 3 that day. So now keep in mind, we still have this issue with the potassium. Yes, the Lokelma is pulling the potassium out of my system, but the only way for it to actually leave my system, it's pulling it from my cells and, the muscles and everything. But the only way for it to actually leave Tiffany's body is through dialysis. It doesn't go through stomach troubles like the other medication would do. You have to physically have dialysis to filter this out of your blood. So they wheeled me back to my room. This is Saturday. They said, they got Dr. Morrison on the phone. You need to have a chest. I was told it was a chest tube. Now, I have had 3 chest tubes before. I do not like them. I'm covered in scars all on my chest from having those. Like, yes, in hindsight, I'm glad that they were able to do that. It saved my life and blah, blah, blah. But, I still have all of these scars on my chest, which is a lot of the time why you see me wearing really long hair, because it kind of hides it. If I'm wearing like, a V-neck shirt or something. I never wear anything that's just like, low cut. That's not me. Plus, I'm not blessed enough for that. So the surgeon comes in, and, he's talking to me, he's consulting. I have a hospital gown on, so he's feeling around my neck. He said, we want to do it on the right side, because we don't want to occlude anything on the left side where my port is. I said, okay. So I'm looking at him. So I'm hearing, okay, surgery. So, okay, when do we go to the OR? Do I need to sign some papers? What you going to knock me out with? Do I get propofol? What do I get? He's looking at me and he's like, oh no, we're going to do it right here in your hospital room, in your hospital bed with local anesthesia, which means I don't get knocked out, which means Tiffany got to be wide awake for this whole thing. As he's saying this, 2 nurses appear pushing a little cart covered with all the medical crap and tarps and stuff that he needs. So, literally, I'm in the bed. Noonie had to see everything. Noonie was there. I'm on my back with a tarp over my face, and, he's sticking me with the lidocaine to numb it. And he's putting this thing in my chest. I actually did not see the tubing until they pulled it out the day I left. And the tubing is literally like this long. I can't even stand in frame with it. It's literally like this long. And is about as wide around as a pencil. And, he literally fed that through my chest. And, the end tip has to be in my heart. So it fed from here. This is the actual bandage from it. Fed it from here all the way across my chest. You can see some of the scarring. All the way across my chest to my heart. And as soon as he finished that last stitch, he said, okay, he clapped his hands like this. Okay, we're done. You're good to go, Ms. Butler. As soon as he said that, there was another voice. Hey, I'm here from the dialysis unit. I'm here from Miss Butler. I still got the damn tarp on my face. So, they cleared all the medical stuff away. There's the guy standing there. There's the tall Asian guy. He said, hi. I said, hi. He said, you ready to go to dialysis? I said, sure. So, I'm starting to try to wiggle myself out the bed because I'm assuming it's right around the corner. We're going to walk right around the corner. This guy completely unhooked my hospital bed. And literally, I want to say maybe 100 steps, pushed me around to dialysis. And, they hooked me up, ran the treatment, and got me out. So I'm thinking, okay, we didn't have this treatment. I thought that the neck thing was supposed to work until, they do my arm and the arm heals. I thought it was something that was supposed to last for a month or so. And they're like, oh no, that's temporary. They kept using that word, temporary. That's going to come out by the time you're ready to go home, which it did. So, okay, so we're battling the potassium thing, but we're still trying to stay and figure out what's going on with my arm. So they were like, the surgeon can't come in Saturday. The surgeon doesn't really work Sunday. The dialysis unit isn't open Sunday. He'll come and get you Monday. So in the meantime, my friend Ebony is coming to see me, and I'm telling her because I think the clinic called her because she's my emergency contact and let her know, okay, Tiffany's been taken to the hospital, and she come tearing down there because she's a great person. So now in the meantime, Michael was at work. Michael is at work while all of this is going on, so I can't call him. All I can do. By the time he got the messages, my phone was dead. And, that's a whole can of worms where he could have just Googled the number for the hospital and found me. But I literally had to spoon feed him everything to find me. But I'm not going to rant about that right now. Moving past that, Monday comes around. Now keep in mind, they've had me chugging this Lokelma stuff nonstop. That's the only juice they was giving me was apple juice, because I can't have orange juice because orange juice has the potassium in it. That would put me right back to square one. So I'm sitting there sucking down apple juice. I have orange juice maybe once a year if I'm lucky, and trust me, I cherish that orange juice too. So finally Monday comes around. They bring me. I'm getting nervous. I'm getting scared. I'm getting nervous. So Michael said he was going to come, to see me the day of the surgery. He was off that day. So, I'm just waiting. Because the people came. This is how ridiculous this was. I was told the night before, Sunday night, that, your surgery is probably going to be about maybe 9, 10 o'clock in the morning. I said, okay, fine. I said, well, I'll be ready for it then. He told me, don't eat anything after 1 a.m. Okay, whatever. So, tell me why the hell I'm in my bed at 3:30 in the morning. My door opens. In comes the nurse carrying a fresh gown and, stuff like that, and a little bathing kit and everything. They have showers in there. I don't like showers. I'm a bath person. I say that all the time. And she comes in and she's like, oh, time for you to take your shower now, Miss Butler. Pardon? It's 3:30 in the morning. It's pitch black outside. They gonna do the surgery now? No, we just like to have the patients, prepared and ready for whenever they do call for them. Okay, fine. I get naked, I go do the shower, I come back. Like 4 a.m., 4:30, I'm back in my bed, just waiting for these people to come get me for surgery. 6 a.m. rolls around. 6:30, here comes my breakfast. I can't eat the breakfast. 7:30, these people didn't send for me until 11 a.m. What pissed me off was I got to go back to dialysis that Monday and use the port in my neck again while waiting to be called for this fucking surgery. So I leave from the dialysis. That's 3.5 hours they let me do in dialysis. 3.5 hours to bring me back to my room. About another 30 minutes pass. Somebody comes, "Hi, Miss Butler, I'm so-and-so," to transfer you down to, the operating room. So, of course, they moved me in my bed again because they just ship people around in the beds, apparently. So I got shipped down to, I guess, the holding area, the waiting area. And at that time, I told somebody, I said, "Well, go call my boyfriend. His number is on file." I said, "Go call him and tell him that, they're getting ready to put me into surgery." So I'm sitting and waiting. I literally sat there for about 3 hours. This ain't got nothing to do with me being mad at Mike for taking that long. The surgeon took that long to come get me. Because by the time the surgeon appeared, I was signing papers for everybody. Consent for the procedure. Consent for anesthesia. Consent for blood should I need blood. Consent for the anesthetics and everything. And I remember I asked him, I said, I got a mixture of propofol and something. But, I'm a Michael Jackson fan. Of course, I fear propofol. Naturally, I do. But they say, "Oh, don't worry about it. You're going to be fine." So, I have had propofol maybe 2 or 3 times over the years. It's not I'm not going under heavy sedative surgery like that all the time. So, there's no need for me to be hitting, getting the big boy stuff like that all the time. But I have had it 2 or 3 times before. So we get down there. Finally, the surgeon comes along. And I say, "Well, how long is this going to take?" I said, "My boyfriend is still en route from, the city he lives in. He lives 15 minutes in a different city." I say, he's coming here from X city. "And how long will, surgery take?" "Oh," he said, "the procedure takes about 1.5 hours. So finally, the nurses come. I don't know what he was doing. Because in the meantime, while I was sitting there, they was talking somebody through, "Oh, we're about to remove your gallbladder, ma'am." So I'm just sitting there listening in, hearing about them getting ready to take this woman's gallbladder out. And how she got sick on somebody's cruise. So they come get me. They take me down to the operating room. It is so bright white, so cold, so sterile. Just, it looked like something out the movies. So there's a little Asian girl. She was a nurse. And she was helping me. I was saying I was nervous. So she grabbed my hand and was holding my hand and, telling me everything's going to be all right. And, she asked me what my name was. I said Tiffany because, they just see Butler, my last name, as, this is the patient. I said, "My name is Tiffany." And, we were talking about how my name is spelled and all that sort of stuff. So I have the IV in my hand. The doctor comes along. He says, "I'm going to push some lidocaine through it first." And he says, I know it wasn't just propofol by itself. It was it mixed with some other stuff, to, put me down. So he came in with the oxygen mask, put the oxygen mask on me. And he says, "Breathe in, and breathe out steadily." He says, "I'm going to start putting the medication in." I said, "Okay." He said, it may burn," which it did. My whole hand felt like it was on fire for a minute. And, I just remember he said, "It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay." And then it seemed like I blinked and I'm in the recovery room. And, I thought that they were going to rouse me in the operating room. And, then transfer me back to recovery until I'm ready to go back to my room upstairs. And no, I'm already in recovery. So that means while my ass was still knocked out, they transferred me from the operating table back to my bed and wheeled me on in. And when I woke up, I said, "Is my boyfriend out there?" And they said, "Well, what's his name?" I gave him the name because he couldn't just sit in the recovery room unless the patient was there. So they went and got him. And he was there. He was there because about 5 minutes later, he come walking around, asking me how everything was and all. So the surgeon come out, to brief me about the surgery and everything. Now, here's where everything went sideways for me mentally. He comes out. I said, "How long did the surgery take?" He said, "About 20 minutes. 20 minutes. The nurses said that this was supposed to take at least an hour to an hour and a half. Why did it only take 20 minutes? I'm looking at Mike looking at me crazy. We're looking at him like, sir, what do you mean? He said, and I swear this ain't nothing but the Lord. I hope I don't cry. He said, I went in and there was nothing there. Now, earlier when I'd been in the emergency room, they did like a scan of it and they saw like a little collection of fluid. So I asked him, I said, well, the fluid you removed. I said, that wasn't pus or like infection or something? He said, no. He said, what he removed was just from being stuck over and over, in the same general area. That can happen. So I said, well, wait a minute. I said, you didn't find any pus in there. Mike leaning forward because all he heard was pus came out of Tiff's arm. Tiffany has an infection. Tiffany is sick. He thinks I'm dying of an infection, basically. So we're looking at the doctor, and I'm saying, you didn't get any other pus out of my arm. He said, no, ma'am, I didn't. I said, you didn't find any sign of an infection in my arm. He said, no, I didn't. He didn't. Because he was really all prepared to go in, cut my arm, fillet my arm open, basically reroute my entire fistula for dialysis. And he didn't have to do any of that. He didn't have to do any of that. He just went in, drained a few cc's of fluid, and that was it. Like, I literally could have been awake for him to do this. Because when they do something similar, when I go to Humble, you hear me say, I got to have surgery on my arm in Humble all the time. You get twilight sedation. You're basically still awake while they're working on your arm. So, he basically could have done that, but just for precaution, he gave me the full sedation. But 20 minutes, and I'm sitting there, and, he was like, thank you, because they called him for his next case. He had another surgery to do. And I'm just laying there like, huh. And I turned to Michael. I said, I'm telling the truth. I said, I got the entire nursing staff who was there Friday to testify, who could testify and say, pus came out of Tiffany's arm. We all saw it. And, I can't explain it. But I got to thinking about it, after the goofy juice, wore off and I was back to my senses. I said, that couldn't have been nothing but the work of the Lord. And because if I hadn't had the issue of whatever it was coming out of my arm, which still, nobody can explain what caused that. Nobody can give me an explanation just why out the clear blue sky with no other signs, pus suddenly shows up in this thing. But if I hadn't gone to the emergency room, we would have never found that I had such a high potassium. If I would have just gone to dialysis, treated, and went home, or just not gone to the hospital even with this issue, I probably wouldn't be standing here right now. Because my potassium would have kept going up and up and up, and I would have kept eating and drinking the bad stuff that caused this in the first place, and I likely would have died from a heart attack at 40. I said that's got to be the work of the Lord. It's got to be the work of the Lord. Because honestly, if anything else had happened, I probably would not have been prompted to go to the hospital. Because I didn't feel like my potassium was out of whack like it was. So that really was a blessing. It was a long journey, 2 surgeries, plus that didn't feel very good when they pulled it out before I left. But I'm here today because of a mysterious issue with my arm. What is my TV doing? Because of a mysterious ailment with my arm that disappeared as quickly as it appeared. I have no explanation for it. None of the medical professionals have an explanation for it. None of the other dialysis nurses at my clinic have an explanation for this. But I just everybody I tell it to, one woman hollered and said it gave her chills because she was like, that really is the Lord at work. And honestly, I still don't know what the Lord is saving me for. I've said that many times. I don't know what he's saving me for. I don't know what he's preserving me for. But I'm grateful. Like, yeah, it was bad and harrowing and everything as it was happening, because nobody wants to be in the hospital. Nobody wants to be sick. Nothing like that. But if I had to go through that again, I most certainly would, because that really did save my life. And I do want to say thank you so much to everybody who sent prayers, well wishes, good vibes, all of that. It really did help me while I was in the hospital, because I didn't know if I was going to come home. Because I was telling my friend Carol about this. In the hospital, I don't know if this is everywhere in the country, but in the hospital here where I usually go, if there's an emergency, like a cardiac event, you hear code blue all through the hospital, no matter where you are in the hospital, on whatever floor. And all I kept hearing the whole time, the 5 days I was in the hospital, was stroke alert, ER, stroke alert, ER. This is for different people suffering strokes. I must have heard 30 strokes those 5 days I was there. Because if you look at my Twitter, at one point I said, is this hospital just a hot spot for strokes? Because that's all you was having was stroke alert, stroke alert, stroke alert. And then code blue, that's a cardiac arrest. Code blue, code blue, code blue. I mean, just, it didn't stop. It didn't stop. Every single day. That's all I was hearing. All day, every single day. And, I'm just thinking, I got to walk out of there and go home. And, that probably was one of the best days of my life. While, at the same time, a lot of people was probably having the worst days of their lives in that hospital. Probably the ending day of their lives in that hospital. So, and, I'm very lucky and very, very blessed to have walked out of that hospital. Walked out of the hospital, got into my friend Ebony's car, walked into my home unassisted, no problem. Feeling exactly how I feel right now, just fine, like myself. Maybe a little heavy with the fluid, but we're working on that. If my only problem is a little excess fluid, I'm lucky. We didn't have to do anything major to my arm. Yes, there's a little bandage on my neck, but whatever. It could have been worse in so many ways. And, I'm not belittling what happened, because it was still a very serious, incident and everything going on. But it could have also been far worse than what it was. So, yeah, I'm incredibly grateful and thankful to God for blessing me, pulling my butt out the fire again. And I'm thankful to everybody who, showed support and love and kindness and everything. I could not have made it without God or without you guys. So I say thank you. And this is why I was in the hospital for 5 days. And it all boils down to what I always say. Take care of your kidneys. Bye-bye, guys. Till next time, hopefully with a happier story.